When I was a kid, I used to hear this word a lot. 강세, you are too young or too little to do this. So, what does that mean? Whenever I heard that, I feel like I'm not fully grown the person. So, when I get older, then I can live a full life. Well, not always. As I have tried many things in life, I have experienced not only success, but also failures. So that made me to be fearful to try new things, even in our faith journey. So one of the problems that we run into when we are afraid is we pull back from the life. How can we live a full life and be free of being fearful? Here's the good news. God can transform our fears and doubts into courage and convictions. Well, after the death of Jesus, the disciples were so afraid of the Jewish authority. They went home and they locked the doors. They were so fearful. But after they encountered the risen Christ, they received the Holy Spirit, and they lived indifferently. Their lives were transformed from fear to faith. All because they received the Holy Spirit. And so we are going to learn about how we can revitalize our life through the work of the Holy Spirit. So that's what we are going to share through the text today. Have you ever felt that you have been really, really long day, one after another? Something unexpected things happen, unwanted things happen. That's what disciples in the text today felt. The triumphal entry of Jerusalem. They still remember the day they heard the shouting of the Hosanna, Hosanna. They knew some kind of conflict between Jesus and religious authority in Jerusalem, but they never imagined that their teachers going to be killed by the hands of the Roman authority. During that weekend, even before figuring out what's going on, another shocking news of the empty tomb was delivered. Now, the news of the empty tomb has spread out, not only to the disciples, but also to the Roman soldiers and religious authority in Jerusalem. The disciples heard about the God's power over death. What kind of power is this? But they were afraid of Jewish authority and Roman soldiers. So they locked the door. But what they really locked was not just the door, but their heart and mind. Because they were so fearful. But you know what? Mary Magdalene, who encountered the risen Christ, was so busy to tell others, I have seen the Lord. I have seen the Lord. So what made a difference among them? Encounter the risen Christ or not? Did they believe the resurrection of Jesus or not? That made a big difference. According to the text today, and Jesus came to these fearful disciples and says, peace be with you. He didn't say, do not be afraid, I got the power to over death. I will defeat all my enemy and your enemy. Don't worry about that. No, he didn't say that. But he says, peace be with you. So what kind of peace is this? According to John 14:27, Jesus promised to give the gift of the peace and explains what it is. And his peace is not the world can give. It's not the false promise of the security. It's not the false promise of the end of the conflict. The peace that Jesus gives is his peace. A peace that derives from the heart of Jesus in life. Jesus gave them peace. Those disciples who have been a really long day. And Jesus also gives us the same kind of peace because his peace helps us to overcome doubts and fears in life. Because his peace helps us to go into the next stage of life. It comes into our hearts and get rid of the darkness and fears that we may open our hearts to the world. So disciples were able to witness the life of Jesus and death and resurrection with a courage, all because of peace they have received. Paul wrote a letter of Philippians, even in prison, and said, "Peace be with you." All because he received the peace of Jesus. That promise and power and comfort and courage. Then why did Jesus give the peace? Not the power and money to overcome or escape. Here's a why in verse 21. As the Father sent me, I am sending you. Because he wanted to give the mission and purpose to his followers. As the Father sent me, I am sending you. So he's giving them a mission to do. Jesus reinforced his followers by giving them the mission to do it. But think about the situation. Who were they? They were in training with Jesus for 3 years, but they didn't really understand the mission of Jesus, the purpose of why Jesus came to the earth. And where were they when Jesus prayed all night by himself? Jesus couldn't sleep because of all agony with what's going on, what he's going through. So he asked them to pray, but they all slept. Jesus cared for them and taught them for 3 years, but they betrayed. Not only once accidentally, but 3 times. How would you feel if you have experienced those with your friend who didn't understand you and eventually betrayed you? Give them the second chance or third chance? No. But Jesus does. Here's a Jesus who came and stood among them on the very first day of the resurrection, not to scold them, not to ask them why they did what they did, but to give them peace. What a great love and forgiveness. And Jesus showed his hand and his side to the frightened disciples. The good news is Jesus, who knew their doubts and fears, also know our doubts and our fears and need of the same grace of God in Jesus. That's a great news. And Jesus gave the disciples not only the peace, but also the mission to do it again. As the Father sent me, I am sending you. It's great to be entrusted by God, isn't it? But honestly, it's overwhelmed to me. How can I do what Jesus did? It's only possible when we have the same kind of strength and power and courage Jesus had. Otherwise, I cannot do anything. So that's why Jesus breathed on them. In verse 22, it says, receive the Holy Spirit. Jesus empowered them with the Spirit. The word to breathe is only here in New Testament. And its usage is the exactly same usage with the God's breathing on and breathing into the first human being in Genesis 2:7. Those who believes in Jesus receive new life as a children of God. And the Holy Spirit is a breath that sustains the new life. In September of 1997, I don't know, where were you in September 1997? Some of you who are not even born, or seems like everybody was born by that time. About 300,000 people gathered in Bologna of Italy for a rock concert. They gathered not only for the famous Bob Dylan, but also Pope John. This is one of the songs Bob sang in 1963. So it's not in the rock concert, but it's the same year that he sang this song. So let's watch this.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times must a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
The answer is in blowing in the wind. Although it has been described as a protest song, it posed a series of rhetorical questions about the peace and war and freedom. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. What does it mean the answer is blowing in the wind? Here's what Pope, who was there at the concert, said to thousands and thousands of young people. You ask how many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? I answer you, one. There is only one road for man, and it is Christ who said, I am the way. He is the road of truth, the way of life. The answer to that question of your life is blowing in the wind. It is true, but not in the wind which blows everything away in empty walls, but the wind which is the breath and voice of the Spirit, a voice that calls and says and come. Those thousands and thousands of young people and responded with a loud applause. Yes. The answer is the Holy Spirit. Friends, This morning, the same Jesus who was at the Calvary 2,000 years ago, and who was among the first disciples, and who was at the corner of the Moses Street 89 years ago to start the church in here, in this place, now tells us, peace be with you. As the Father sent me, I am sending you. Receive the Holy Spirit. The same Jesus who was at the Calvary 2,000 years ago and now tells us, peace be with you, and receive the Holy Spirit. My friend, we might be facing the situation of fear and doubt. We might be struggling with unanswerable questions in life. Where can we find the answer to those questions? Ecclesiastes 1:2 says, perfectly pointless. Say the teachers, perfectly pointless. Everything is pointless. The word pointless in Hebrew is habel, which means a breath. But this breath is not the breath of the Spirit. This breath is just the breath of the human being. So it means when we rely on ourselves, all of life is pointless and meaningless and useless and vain. That's what that means. Because of the breath of a human being is like in the wind, like in the wind, which blows everything away in the world. We are all alive. We are all breathing now. But where is the breath that we just breathed? It's gone. It's gone. This breath is our life. But our life is just gone like the wind. That's who we are. But here's the good news. The reason Christ is here with us this morning to breathe on us the Holy Spirit. In the breath of the Spirit, there is nothing impossible. There is no one we cannot love because His breath is love. We do not need to be afraid of anything because His breath is peace. And we can live a full life in His breath because His life is power and His breath is eternity. So fears and doubts are everywhere, even in our faith journey. Trials and conflicts and all over. So where can we find the answer? The answer is blown in the wind, but not in the empty world, but in the breath of the Holy Spirit. So why are we here today? Why is the reason Christ is here with us now? Because He wants us to breathe on Him. He wants to breathe on us to give us that peace and confidence and hope. So Jesus is here now with us to breathe on us. Receive the Holy Spirit and live a full life. So may the Lord bless your heart and your mind so that you may receive the Holy Spirit and revitalize your life through the works of the Holy Spirit.